Hi there, good afternoon. This is my pleasure to present to you the origins and why do we celebrate Thanksgiving Day. My name is Gloria Gaston and I work in Enes Morelia, and this is my pleasure to be with you tonight. Let me share with you this presentation, please. Okay, so here we are. I will be passing the slides as I talk to you about this. This is a Thanksgiving tall tale. Do you know what a tall tale is? A tall tale is a kind of legend, things that pass from one mouth to another mouth, from grandparents to sons, and from sons to grandchildren, and from grandchildren to their aunts, sons, etc., etc. So sometimes it is considered a kind of legend, and sometimes this is something that you have added some salt and pepper to it, and maybe this is true, maybe this is not true, but this is a great celebration. Anyway, okay, so let's start. Once upon a time in North England and Ireland, this is in the north part of Europe, a large group of separatists was persecuted by the Puritans who pushed them to leave their country. What is this? There were some separatists and there were some Protestant people, and we are talking about religion, people who were prosecuted by a group of Puritans, which was a major group of people, and they pushed them to leave their country. They invited them in a very polite way to leave their country. This means Ireland and the United Kingdom, because they didn't want people who were not Puritans as they were. Okay, this is a photograph. Of course, this photograph does not belong to those times, but this is the kind of face like the separatists and the Protestants had when they left their country. And this was about religious things. Okay, one day, 102 people sailed from England to the New World on a fishing ship called the Mayflower. And this was in July 1620. A fishing ship is a very small fish that is used only to catch fish in the sea, in the river, in a lake, or whatever. Okay? Imagine 102 people in that ship or on that ship, more on than in, because that kind of ship don't have a room or a cabin so people can be protected from storms or from the bad weather or from the wind or whatever. Among all these 102 people, there were grown-up people, ancient people, babies, and also they carried their animals and all their belongings because they were not coming back to England any longer. So they needed everything that they had. They couldn't carry their houses because they were too heavy to be carried in a fishing ship. But anyway, they carried their clothes or maybe a pail or maybe a box with some memories. I don't know. Whatever they had, they carry all their belongings with them. And it was terrible because 102 people plus the goats, plus the chicken, maybe a pig, and all were like this, all of them, because they fit in that small ship. Okay, this is a kind of ship that a fishing ship is. It's a very small one, and it's used only to put all the fish that are caught in the sea. As you can see, there are some people working on them. And what happened with all the families? Imagine 102 people could be maybe 50 families or maybe 40 families because they used to have many children in those times. But anyway, It was summertime when they departed from the United Kingdom. And it was autumn when they got to America. So it took more than 2 months, that crossing of the Atlantic Ocean, which was really terrible because the strong winds and the heavy storms and everything made the ship to move all the time. And the waves were really big. They were very tall. So they covered the ship sometimes. It was totally dangerous for all these people. Okay, look at this map. This is more or less the crossing of the Mayflower. They left from Plymouth, England, and they went up to Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts. Of course, all of them baptized this rock as Plymouth, as the town from which they departed, okay? And this is the Atlantic Ocean. They crossed the Atlantic Ocean in the north part of, which was really dangerous. When the pilgrims, and we call pilgrims all those people who, for the first time, occupy a land that they do not own. In this case, they got to America, so they were kind of the first people getting to America, which is not true, not totally true, because before them, there had been a group of English people who had arrived to the coast of South America, and before them also the Vikings, these big people with big horns, had got to America. They were the pilgrims, really. Okay, but we call them pilgrims because this is the first news that we have about them. When the pilgrims landed in Plymouth Harbor, after a dangerous and uncomfortable crossing that lasted 66 days, more than 2 months, it was November. They were very tired, they were hungry, and they were thirsty. How is it possible that they are thirsty if they're in the middle of the ocean? Because the water from the ocean is salty. It's not for drinking it, okay? So they were not tired, they were exhausted, and they were not hungry, they were starving, and they were really thirsty. Okay, this is a kind of painting that shows more or less the people getting to America. Of course, this photograph, the photograph, no. Of course, this painting is not true, because people who had suffered more than 2 months in a fishing ship do not dress like this, and do not have these faces all blushed and red, and they look very happy, and they look like chubby faces. Of course not. But this is a painting. But this is more or less what happened. They touched the land of America for the first time. And there were sick people, there were small kids, maybe a dog, people who were crying because they were emotioned. There were babies because maybe this woman had a baby in the ship. But all these people were greatly thankful because they had finally got to a place in which they could have a piece of land, be very happy without being prosecuted because of their religious thoughts. And here there is a Native American person, an Indian. What is this Indian doing in here? Okay, it was his country, and it was the country of his tribe. So when these pilgrims go to America, these Indians, these Native American people were watching at them. They were watching at them, okay? Some of them did not die. Just some of the pilgrims did not die during the crossing. Pilgrims felt really desolated, but they wanted to find a new way of living free. So they said, okay, this is a risk, but I will run the risk of going away from my country. Look, it was November, and in the north of the United States and the south of Canada, in November, it is already snowing. So these were supposed to be the pilgrims. This was a kind of robes or clothes that they wore in those times, white necks, and this kind of hats. And the girls were dressed like mothers were dressed, and maybe these were the shepherds and men in the front of the group because they had to defend and to make signals to the rest of the group. The remaining settlers moved close to the beach, where they received an astonishing visit from some members of the Wampanoag Native American tribe, headed by Squanto, who greeted them in English. Maybe that Native American person that we saw in the other photograph, maybe this was Squanto. His name was Squanto, and he belonged to the Wampanoag native people, okay? Wampanoag was the name of the tribe. And he went to the pilgrims and he said, how are you? And of course the pilgrims said, oh, how can this be possible that a Native American person speaks in English? Okay, here we have the answer. Squanto was a member of the tribe, that had been kidnapped by an English sea captain and sold into slavery before escaping to London and returning to his homeland on an exploratory expedition. What happened here? There was an English sea captain who go to America first before the pilgrims that I mentioned you before, and found Squanto. Maybe Squanto was a kid, or maybe Squanto was a young boy, and he kidnapped him, and he brought Squanto with him. Of course, Squanto learned some words in English, or maybe more than some words, because he had to communicate with this English captain. So that's why when he received the pilgrims, he said, how are you? And the pilgrims didn't know what to do because they couldn't imagine that the Native American people spoke English the way that they did. Okay, look at this. This is another painting, of course. There were no photographs in those times. Squanto, who is this? Belonged to the Wampanoag tribe. He had his mates with him, and this Squanto was the English-speaking Indian who helped the pilgrims. So they saluted, and Squanto and his friends were very kind and friendly with the pilgrims. And what happened with this kind of treatment? Well, the Indians taught the pilgrims how to cultivate the corn, get the extract from the maple trees, catch fish in the rivers, and avoid poisonous plants, as well as to domesticate turkeys and build homes. How is this possible? if the pilgrims survived in their country. Okay, but in Ireland and in North United Kingdom, there were not corn because corn is an American product. So they didn't know how to cultivate corn, how to plant the seeds, and how to harvest the corns when they were mature enough. How did they get the extract from the maple trees? What are the maple trees? Remember that they were in America, a new continent. In North Europe, there are not maple trees, and the maple trees are the ones from which people extract the honey that is used in the hotcakes and the waffles. Okay. They taught them to catch the fish in the rivers because these people used nets to catch the fish. But the Indians caught the fish with a stick. So they were watching the fish and then they put the stick in the middle of the fish, and that was the way that they caught it. They knew the poisonous plants, which was really worth it for the pilgrims because they didn't know these plants, as well as to domesticate turkeys and build homes. How is it possible that to build homes? Because there were different trees in America than in the north part of Europe. And because they used different materials to build the houses. And what about the turkeys? Okay, you know that turkeys is a popular icon of Thanksgiving Day. Why? Because turkeys used to be wild. They were wild animals. So the Indians taught the pilgrims that they should build a kind of corral and put the turkeys inside in order that they got fattened and also that they didn't move too much. So when they were fat enough, they could eat the turkeys. That was the way to domesticate them. Look at this photograph. Okay. This is a Native American person, that is showing the man where the mountains are, maybe where it's the sea, maybe where it's the river. And this is an Indian that is showing the pilgrims to harvest the corn because the pilgrims didn't know the corn. And these are the turkeys that were already domesticated and they look very chubby. And what about these? This is the corn, these are apples, and these are pumpkins. But it happens that the pumpkins are an American product. So the people who came from Northern Europe didn't know pumpkins. So they knew that the pumpkins for the first time in their life, and once they tasted them, they said they are delicious. How is this possible? Yes, so the Indians taught them to cultivate the pumpkins too. When the autumn came and the first fruits were harvested, they were picked up because they were mature enough, the pilgrims decided to have a feast to thank God for the blessings and for the Indian support and the teachings. What happened? By mid-October or late October, when the products like the fruits and vegetables are ready to be harvested, the pilgrims started picking up all their products and they had a lot of food to eat. No more hunger, no more starving, no more cold, no more uncomfortable situations. So they were really thankful with their God and with the Indians because the Indians had supported them and they had taught them to have all these bounties, okay? Remember that Thanksgiving talks about being grateful, about giving thanks, about appreciating everything that we have and everything that we don't have, everything that we are and everything that we are not, which sometimes is more important, okay? But you are free, and all the people who celebrate Thanksgiving are free to thank whoever they want, the way they want, and when they want. It would be great to thank every day, but sometimes we're so busy that we just wake up and go out of bed and get to work, and we forget about having breakfast, and we forget about listening to the birds singing and listening to the frogs and watching the grass or watching the streets or watching whatever you want. We forget about this because we are in a hurry all the time. But these people were not in a hurry. These people had enough time to thank all the bounties that they had received. So they prepared a big festivity. Of course, this is a painting, and it's not exactly the way it was. But more or less, we have an idea of what happened here, okay? Look at these pilgrim women with their own dresses invited the Indian to taste any product that they had prepared. And there are some oysters and maybe a pot with soup, or all the people are very happy because they are having a great festivity. And this festivity was exactly to thank the Indians for their support, for their teachings, and thank their own God in their own way because they had received many bounties from him. So long tables were filled with delicious food, including turkey. Remember that they had already domesticated turkey, vegetables, and fruits. Imagine that this was really a big table in which the festivity for thanking, for giving all the blessings to the Indians and to the maids of the pioneer or the pilgrim maids. This is maybe the shepherd that is saying, okay, thank you, Lord, and thank you, Indians, and thank you, Squanto, and thank you to my wife, because we have survived all these terrible situations. Maybe, okay? Look at the turkey in this table. It is already cooked. Or roasted, it looks like roasted. And here are some grapes, and here are the pumpkins again, and the corn. Here are more corn, and the Indians are delighting the turkey. Here's another turkey, and they are taking out the parts of the turkey because maybe they are starving, or maybe the turkey was delicious. Maybe Mrs. Pilgrim cooked really well. And the Indians were delighted because maybe they had never tasted the turkey that style. So they were enjoying food. They were enjoying the festivity. Okay. Some significant happenings are in the middle of that year. Remember, it was 1620s, more or less, up to 1827. 200 years had passed. And among these years, the independence of the USA, So people, of course, forgot about Thanksgiving Day because they were in war. And it was the Civil War of the United States, in which were fighting the North people against the South people. And in the middle was all the situation of slavery. So, of course, they forgot about Thanksgiving Day. Who is going to remember that special day? Nobody. But precisely in 1827, the magazine editor and writer, Sarah Josepha Hale, she was the author of the nursery rhythm, Mary Had a Little Lamb. I don't know if you are conscious of this rhythm. It's a very popular, and it sounds something like, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. More or less like this. And this is especially for babies or for kids that are in the kindergarten age. So this lady, whose name was Sarah Josepha Hale, made a campaign to establish Thanksgiving as a national holiday. So she wanted to recover that festivity of Thanksgiving Day. And she fought and fought and fought for 36 years. She published numerous editorials and sent letters to governors, senators, presidents, and other politicians, earning her the nickname of the Mother of Thanksgiving. So people called her, Sarah is the Mother of Thanksgiving. Why? Because she wanted to recover this festivity that was so important for her. And here we have another time, the icon of the turkey with the hat of the pilgrim. Of course, this is a cartoon, but it's really nice. Abraham Lincoln, do you remember that American president, the one who had a beard like this? Abraham Lincoln finally listened to her request in 1863. Remember that past 36 years that she kept fighting and fighting. And he scheduled Thanksgiving for the final Thursday in November, the final Thursday. Sometimes November has 4 Thursdays, and sometimes November has 5 Thursdays. It all depends on the days, on the calendars. So it was celebrated on that day every year until 1939. What happened there? Well, there was another president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who moved the holiday a week in an attempt to push up the sales during the Great Depression. You know that in the United States existed a Great Depression, an economical going down. Yeah, it was terrible because most of the people didn't have a job. Most of the people didn't have enough money to survive. So it was really terrible. So Franklin D. Roosevelt thought that it could be a nice way to improve the sales or to push up the sales during the Great Depression if he moved the celebration of Thanksgiving Day to the 4th Thursday of November. 4th Thursday of November. This year, Thanksgiving Day will be this next Thursday, November the 24th. Okay. Here is this is a kind of prayer. This is something that you want to celebrate Thanksgiving. This is a way to say thank you to whom you prefer. This is dedicated to the Lord, but the Lord can be your own God, or can be your family, or can be nature, or can be everything or every person that you consider that is your leader. Okay? So thank you, Lord, for loving care. Thank you for the clothes we wear. Thank you for our homes and food. You are always kind and good. Thank you for our strength and health, for our country's peace and wealth. Thank you for love, life, and joy. Thanks for every girl and boy. And I think this is a lovely prayer because it talks about love. And love can be considered the love for your family, the love for your friends, of course, the love for your couple, your love for the nature. Thank you for the clothes that we have because they cover us and they protect us from the wind, from the storms, from the cold, from the hot, whatever. Thank you for our homes and food because we have a place to that is a shelter for us. And thank you for the food because our stomachs are filled with nutrients. You are always kind and good. Thank you for our strength and health, okay? We are healthy. We are not sick. For our country's peace and wealth. This is very important because remember that the people in the United States used to be very nationalist. So they are thinking all the time in their countries. And they want the peace in their country. And this happened just after the Civil War. So they were reminding these times of war, and they were really a pity for them. So they were thanking their Lord for the peace and for the wealth. The wealth is the richness of the country. Thank you for love, life, and joy. Thanks for every girl and boy who are the hope of our country, of our family, of our population. Well, and I want to thank you all for being here today. But before saying goodbye, I want you to invite to celebrate this great festivity. Thanksgiving Day doesn't mean giving presents. Thanksgiving Day means much more than that. It's thank everything for everything that you have, for everything that you appreciate, for all the people who are around you, for your family, for your dearest friends, for all the opportunities that you have had in life to be more and more, or for be a better person. So this is the way that we can think. And it would be nice if we had the opportunity or we thought of thinking every day, but it is hard for us. It is really hard because we have a lot of things in our head and this is almost impossible. And we cannot be driving our car and saying, thank you, without paying attention to the other cars because we're going to have an accident. So this is terrible. This kind of speedy life is terrible, but at least one day a year, it's great to thank God, to thank your own God, or to thank nature, or to thank whoever you want, maybe to thank yourself for being what you are. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Enjoy this festivity. Bye-bye. It was my pleasure being here.